Good. Hi, this is AJ and Ann doing our discussion for Miss Gubbin's English class. All right, so the first thought I had upon reading this book is the insane ways that they engineer the children, like the ways that they do it are so like peculiar and not ways that I think I've seen in other books or other like stories where they like automate children.
I agree with that because you know how Miss Gavin was on like the whole theme of the book kind of is kind of like mass production and film and stuff like that. Like when they were like describing the hatchery and stuff like that with like the way the babies or children were being made, it reminded me of like a factory producing a product rather than like an actual hospital or a place where like children are like usually given birth at.
Yeah, and like the theme of consumption is so in your face. Like, for example, the way that they like are able to like maximize, because I know a lot, like when I think capitalism, I think like maximizing profits, and they maximize the number of children they can produce by like having an ovary, all the eggs in the ovary, they fertilize every single one. They're like, nah, we're gonna like turn this one ovary that would normally make one child in 9 months have like 72,000 kids in like 4 months. Like it's crazy.
And that like relates back to like the mass production side of things.
It really does. Then there's this one line that says 30% of female embryos develop naturally, and the other 70% are like given a hormone to become male. Does that mean 30% of the population, like of that embryo, is going to be female, or like that part confused me a little bit?
Well, I'm not exactly sure about that because I think what they were doing were like injecting like female hormones, but then they were like injecting more of the male hormones to like a certain other embryos, but I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of that would be.
Okay. Another thing me and Brennan mentioned was decanting. Like they said, like they decant the embryos or whatnot. When I think of decant, I think of a wine decanter, like to aerate and provide more flavor for the wine. How do they like decant an embryo? Like that part like really confused me.
That confused me too because I don't really remember. I do remember reading that word, but I don't necessarily remember myself thinking about what it meant. I just kind of skipped it over.
All right. Then also, wait, I'm reading my notes. Sorry, I gotta recapture myself. Yeah, so they electrocute the kids. That was funny to me, kind of. I laughed when they were like, oh yeah, so here's some books and flowers for the kids, and the kids were grabbing and they like shocked them, and I was like, oh.
I did not like that. And you know what that reminded me of? The movie But I'm a Cheerleader, where they go to conversion camp.
Yes.
And then they want them to shock themselves whenever they think of like homosexual thoughts and stuff.
Literally.
That's what that reminded
it's like training your mind.
Yes, and I was not feeling that at all.
Yeah, it's really weird. That and then like just the different ways they manipulate people starting from birth, like the electrocution, and then I don't know, like it was spelled weird in the book, but
hypnomedia, whatever.
Hypnomedia, yeah, but like they tell them stuff in their sleep and they're like sleeping and you have to like implant their minds or whatever. I feel like there's also a real thing because literally my freshman year of Spanish, which I failed by the way, I tried to like do that method of like listening to something while you're sleeping and hopefully you'll like learn it and retain it, and to see that like play out in a book but used for like mass like manipulation of people is it's just beyond me. So that was definitely a little interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I mean, I know people say sometimes that you can be hypnotized in your sleep and like stuff like that, but I've never really seen that type of hypnosis used as a way to kind of quote unquote brainwash someone.
Yes, so like the way they describe it with like a room just full of rows of beds and people are just sleeping and napping and it's just on repeat, and the nurse has to be like, oh, we can't wake them up or whatever. Like that whole concept is really interesting to me. In addition to that, there's on page 14, a student says, it's quoted that an ingenious student asks, why keep the embryos subpar? And the DHC just responds with ass out of nowhere. That was a little strange to me. I didn't know what he meant by that. But the way that they keep the embryos subpar is also interesting to me with the limitation of oxygen, because that is a real thing. Like babies who don't get enough oxygen in the womb are more likely to be born with deformities, mental issues, et cetera, et cetera. So I definitely think like the utilization of that is very integral to the story, the way that they utilize it to manipulate the outcomes of children and like how intelligent they are, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that. I can see your point of view.
And also this whole thing reigns heavily of like Hitler.
Okay.
Like like trying to get like the perfect
and
person.
Like eugenics.
Yes.
Mixed into it.
Literally.
Yeah,
but it's like they've already made the perfect person, so now they're like trying to create people to work for the perfect person, and those people can't be as smart as a perfect person or as strong as a perfect person. So utilizing that is just
also reminds me of like I know in this book there's caste and like capitalism, like the capitalistic system where at different classes, you're always looking below at the class below you, kind of, sort of thing. And you're like, well, at least I might not be rich, but at least I'm not poor.
Literally, where it's like you're always like
exactly
content with where you are.
Literally, so that when I was reading the book and I saw like different caste levels and how they were conditioning them to say, oh, I'm a beta, I might not be as smart as an alpha, but at least I'm not an epsilon, at least I'm not a whatever.
Or it could always be worse type of mindset.
Exactly, that reminded me of like the capitalistic system in our world, kind of a little bit.
That is so real, because
like,
literally people do that all the time. They're like, well, you know, I may not be rich, but at least I'm not as poor as that homeless guy over there, or whatever. Like, everyone's kind of just like supposedly supposed to be content where they are, regardless if they are or not, which is just an interesting
keep
concept.
Looking up and down to like say, okay, I'm grateful or I'm content with where I'm at.
Literally. Okay, I don't think it'll allow me to upload a video that's like over 6 minutes, so we're gonna cap it right here. Thank you for viewing, Miss Gavin.